In the following 4 problems that were given for trigonometric functions that give us sine, cosine, we're going to find the amplitude, period, phase shift, and vertical shifts, respectively. So as you know, these are the equation types in which the amplitude, the period, the phase shift, and the vertical shift can be found. Okay? So basically, in the first equation, function u is equal to sine pi t, the amplitude is going to be the absolute value of the a, right? And the a is going to be the constant placed right before the sine or cosine, respectively, right? As you can see, a is before the sine, and a can be also before the cosine. That's the constant. Now, to be sure, you always have to take the absolute value of that constant a, because sometimes it can be negative. In this case, the constant in front of the sign is the 1, right? Because there's a 1 times. Whenever you don't see a constant, you assume it's going to be 1, right? So the absolute value of 1 is going to be 1, right? So the amplitude is 1. Now the period is going to be given to us by using the formula 2 pi divided by the b, right? The b value. So I'm going to write it down so you know where I got it from. So 2 pi divided by the b. So 2 pi being divided by, now what is the b value? The b value in this case is pi. Okay? 2 pi divided by pi, so that takes you the pi out. So as a result, you get 2, right? So the period of this function is 2. Now the phase shift is going to be c divided by b. Okay, c divided by b. You might say, where's the c value here? Right? There's a subtraction of c from the product of the b times t. In this case, the b is pi, right? And the t is t. But there's no minus c, right? So whenever you don't see it, there are no parentheses either for that angle. That means the c value is 0, right? So it's going to be 0 being divided by pi, right? Which is the b value. 0 divided by pi is 0, right? So the phase shift in this example of this function is 0. Phase shift means basically that you're moving either left or right. You're taking the function in the graph and then you're moving the graph by a certain number of units, in this case c units. Okay? So now the vertical shift is going to be responsible for up and down motion of the function in question, right? Up and down translation. In this case, the vertical shift, again, you don't see the d, do you? Right? Because there's nothing added after everything that's provided here. There's nothing added. So in this case, we're just going to write d, right? Because that's the vertical shift. Now the d in this case is 0, right? Because we don't see anything being added after the angle here, right? So it's going to be 0. Now keep in mind that the d is added outside of the angle, right? Not part of the angle, right? So you might as well treat it like this, right? You can see there's no c and there's no d after the parentheses, right? So the d is equal to 0. So both the vertical shifts and the phase shifts in this function sine of pi t is 0. The only thing that is non-zero is the amplitude, the absolute value of the a, the 1, that was a 1. And also the period, that was 2, right? We got it from dividing 2 pi by the b value. In this case, the b was pi. Now let's do the second one. The second question, as you can see, is already more interesting because it seems to have more information than the first one. So the amplitude is going to be the absolute value of the a. In this case, the a is 2. Okay, the a is 2. So it's going to be this. The absolute value of 2 is 2 itself, so the amplitude is 2. The period is going to be 2 pi, once again, being divided by b. Now, what is the b value? The b value here is going to be 1, right? Because we know the b multiplies the t, right? So that's 1. There's a secret 1 there. 1 times t is t, right? So 2 pi over 1 is 2 pi. So the period is 2 pi, which is typical, right? Typical. It's very much like a parent function, except the amplitude is not 1, and then there's also a vertical shift. Okay, now I'm saying vertical shift and not a phase shift. And you wonder, why is this not a phase shift, the -4? Because the phase shift should have the c inside the parentheses as part of the angle for the cosine, right? In this case, the picture does not look like this, right? So we know definitely -4 is not part of the phase shift. So we know that -4 is going to be outside. And the phase shift, the c value is 0 here, just like in the first example, right? So c over b is the formula. We know the c value is 0 here, okay? And the b value is 1, right? 0 over 1 is 0. Now finally, the vertical shift. The vertical shift is responsible for the d outside the parentheses. As we saw it before, we can put parentheses like that. You definitely see the d value is going to be the value outside, and that's what it should be. So we know -4 is equal to d. So d is equal to -4, which basically means that you're shifting the graph of 2 cosine t 4 units down, right? You're shifting this graph of 2 cosine t by 4 units down. That's how the function becomes 2 cosine t minus 4. Okay? So now the next question, the amplitude is going to be the absolute value of 1/3, the constant before the cosine, and that's going to be 1/3. The period is going to be 2 pi being divided by the b. Now 2 pi divided by the b. What is the b value? The b value here, as you can tell, is 2, right? It matches this, right? The number being multiplied to the t, right? So that's going to be 2, right? And then 2 pi divided by 2. The 2's cancel out, so you remain with pi, right? So the period for this function is going to be pi. Now the phase shift, we're talking about left or right shifts, is going to be what? It's going to be c being divided by b, right? So c being divided by b. Once again, that's the formula. So let's see. What is the c? Is there a c value? Once again, there's no c value, right? Because we place the parentheses like this. We can see the c is not being subtracted from here, right? So we know definitely there's no phase shift, right? So the c value is 0, even though the b value is 2, right? 0 over 2 is still 0. Now vertical shift, once again, you definitely know there's nothing following, right? If you place parentheses, there's nothing following that would suggest any d value in either case, in either types of functions, cosine or sine, doesn't matter. The form is the same. There's no d value, right? So the d value is assumed to be 0, like in the other examples. Now in the final example, as you can tell, the picture now finally starts to look like the worst it can get, right? With the phase shift existing, the vertical shift existing. So let's experiment. Let's actually take a look at this. Let's match information. So note the amplitude. Now you also can see that why we use the absolute value, right? Now it becomes handy. There's a -2 as the constant. So the absolute value will make sure that it's going to be 2, right? The amplitude, what that tells you is that the amplitude will always be positive no matter what happens, right? That's just the rule of it. The amplitude should be positive. Okay? Now the period is going to be 2 pi divided by the b, as we already know. 2 pi being divided by the b. So let's see, 2 pi being divided by the b. What is the b value? We're matching what we have with the picture on the left side or on the right, doesn't matter, sine or cosine. You can see that the b multiplies the t. So 1/3 multiplies the t. So therefore, 1/3 should be here, right? 2 pi being divided by 1/3 is the same thing as 2 pi being divided by 3. So we get 6 pi as the period for this function here. Now the phase shift, let's see. So the phase shift is going to be C value divided by the B value, right? C value being divided by the B value. Now C divided by the B. Let's see. So what is the C value? The C value here is what's subtracted after the product of B and T. B and T is this product. C is being subtracted. So as you can see, this is going to be pi. Pi is being matched to C there, right? Because both are subtracted. So pi is equal to C value. Now, pi is being divided by the B. The B is going to be 1/3. So that's the same thing as pi being multiplied to 3. So the result is 3 pi. Right? So that tells you that you're going to move this, this function 3 pi units to the right. Right? That's what it tells you. That's what positive stands for. Now the vertical shift, once again, we seem to have a no value of the d here, right? There's nothing following the close of the parentheses, so it's going to be, we're assuming that the d is equal to 0. So there's no vertical up or down shifts whatsoever.